Receiving a package of a new video game addressed to her, Anzu Hoshino was elated. The whole reason for living was right here in her hands. In elementary school, she always played video games with the boys. In middle school, when her friends invited her to flirt with the boys, she preferred battling last bosses. Her friends would often question her habit of constantly eating chocolate, concerned they'd get fat and have bad acne. But chocolate meant everything to her, and her dearest beloved was her cat, Momohiki. Romance played absolutely no role in her life, until she somehow found herself on top of this handsome boy. It was a weekend just like any. Anzu stuffed her face while her cat sat on her lap, excited to game until dawn. Getting into the game, she had all the typical experiences of a shoujo heroine. She couldn't believe this. The game looked corny and outdated, on top of the fact it didn't look like the game she bought at all. Pulling its way out of her TV, a little weird wizard creature congratulated Anzu. She's been selected as the first test subject. Riri introduced themselves as a wizard that makes wishes and dreams come true. The rules to this were very difficult to explain, so it told her to read carefully. But Anzu couldn't read Chinese. Also, the explanation was too long. So Riri summarized. They've come from the magic world to help out total romance noobs like Anzu. It teased, asking when was the last time Anzu had a thrill from the opposite sex. And Anzu recalled Lord Matthew or swordsman Musashi Maru. But those were just characters in a game. She was in high school now. Riri told her she needed to dream bigger and get real. So, Riri's come to grant her a life that's like an ultimate game. Anzu didn't mind, but the two would bicker back and forth about her having zero romantic experiences, despite her acting like an expert because of her virtual romances. Riri was going to surround her with handsome men, making her real life an otome, whether it be getting pressed against the wall or getting pulled by her chin. A kiss-filled life might be awaiting her. Anzu seemed excited at the idea of this prospect at first, until she realized her cat was missing. To make sure Anzu focused entirely on romance, Riri confiscated her three great desires: video games, chocolate, and her cat. Anzu dug through her game cases, finding all her discs had been replaced with eel jerky. Her chocolate completely gone as well. It had been stripped off of her favorite treats, which included almonds, crackers, and Pocky. Well, it seemed more like Riri ate it all anyway. Riri basically told Anzu this was equivalent exchange. She had to give up something for a hot guy paradise. Unless Riri did this, Anzu would choose her cat over any hot guy. And when she was lonely, instead of seeing her boyfriend, she'd comfort herself with chocolate. And instead of spending time on dates, she would likely play video games. Until Anzu had an actual thrilling romance like in an ultimate, these things would be taken forever. Anzu tried to argue she couldn't live without her three great desires. So Riri smacked her, explaining that was why she was selected. Riri was here to solve Japan's dwindling population problem. Of course, Anzu didn't know that since she didn't read the rules. Riri was here for the sake of love, for Japan's future, and most of all, their salary. Riri took their leave. Then Anzu rushed downstairs, and her mom would point to Momohiki, lying above the air conditioning. She tried to call down her cat, but it just wouldn't respond to her. Her father then suddenly came home and told her mother he's been transferred to the US for work, and he wanted her to come with her. Anzu was being left behind since she still had school. It'd only be for a couple of years. They believed she was old enough to live on her own for the time being. Anzu remembered her father worked for the post office. Why would he be transferred to the US? With them leaving her the next morning, she fell to the floor. They prepped to move overseas so fast. Riri appeared, saying this was important to get things ready for her as quickly as possible. Anzu grabbed the wizard, tossing it all over the walls. She didn't want to be a heroine. She wanted her life back. She ran outside in her Crocs, but every store was totally out of chocolate. It didn't matter where she went. She couldn't believe this was happening. She couldn't stand the idea of being under the control of a jerk who made that lame romantic thriller game. If some handsome boy came her way, she would refuse to fall in love. No mere mortal man could possibly live up to the impossibly high expectations she's built playing video games. If there was never any romance, then Riri would surely give up and leave her alone. Depriving Anzu of her great desires transformed her into a heinous beast. This won't be any pathetic romantic thriller. She was going to blow this all to bits and transform into a romantic killer. She'd begin by opening the store door, knocking a boy's phone over and cracking the screen. And oh no, he was handsome. She offered to pay for it, but he said there was no need, and that he wasn't watching where he was going. She tried convincing herself, compared to Matthew and Musashimaru, this boy was no big deal at all. She made her escape as quickly as she could, but little did she know, Riri was watching. Heading to school the next day, Anzu told Riri to stop bothering her, since she'd look like a crazy person talking to thin air. Riri explained this was no problem, because while they conversed, everyone else only saw an illusion. Suddenly, Riri struck her kneecap, causing Anzu to fall over, and looking up, she'd see the handsome boy from yesterday, staring at her somewhat nervously. Taking a glance at his uniform, she couldn't believe this. They went to the same school. Makoto then came by, telling Tsukasa to stop standing there and give her a hand. But she assured them she was perfectly fine, and the two boys walked off. Heading their way, a girl tried giving a love letter to Tsukasa. Anzu was surprised to see other girls thought he was hot too. The aloof boy just responded, "No thank you," and walked away. Rest in peace, her heart. Makoto told him he could have just accepted it at the very least, but Tsukasa didn't want her to get the wrong idea. Hey, I'm with him. But Anzu was not. She thought his popularity probably made him conceited. No way in heck was she ever dating a jerk like him. Reina, the girl behind Tsukasa, mentioned that he didn't read any of her texts yesterday, and when he mentioned his phone was busted, a wave of guilt washed over Anzu. Tsukasa didn't have phone insurance, and he was too broke to get a new one. During lunch, Anzu had her best friend, Saki, follow her to the cafeteria. With their parents gone so soon, she didn't have time to prepare lunch for herself. She'd be stunned, finding both her and Tsukasa choosing lunch set A. Sitting down at their table, Saki brought up that Tsukasa was the hot stud everyone talked about from class 7. The girls were always talking about him. Since Anzu was always playing video games on lunch break, it was reasonable she didn't know about him. He supposedly moved here alone from outside the prefecture. He's popular since he was so chill and hardly ever smiled. But Anzu only thought he seemed more like a jerk. Riri jumped in to say hating him at first, but gradually falling in love was typically how it went. As Anzu began to eat, she started choking with Reina taking the seat next to Tsukasa behind her. Reina started rambling about how she heard Tsukasa lived by himself and she wanted to visit. Anzu wanted no part of hearing this. At home, Anzu was so bored. She had no games, no cat, no chocolate either. She decided to get up to make food, and spotted a cockroach, replaced by the image of a cake slice because it's too grotesque. She was distraught, since the person who usually handled the roaches, her mother, was gone. The soldier in her arose to spray it with bug killer, but finding the canister was empty, the roach leapt at her. She ran out so quickly, she didn't bring anything with her. Her shoes didn't even match. She didn't want to go home, but she was starving. Then, it suddenly started pouring rain, so she took cover, not expecting Tsukasa to come by. Anzu made a useless effort trying to avoid Tsukasa's gaze, but he warned her that a pervert was spotted at this park a few days ago. Bumping her head in panic, she quickly ran out into the rain, but he would pull her back, offering his umbrella. This would lead her to taking it home, giving it back, and they'd become friends. So she adamantly refused, even though he insisted. She wasn't about to owe him more favors. She claimed she was fine, and that idiots like her didn't get sick. But Tsukasa could clearly see her runny nose. Tired of her stubbornness, he decided to take her to his home, where he'd give her an umbrella he planned to throw out. Anzu would blush as she felt his warm hands on her. Since she was too short to hold the umbrella at his height, he held it for her. This was every girl's dream of sharing an umbrella with a hot guy. But Anzu wasn't gonna give in. Now, she was at the house of a hot guy who lived alone. She tried not to get excited by thinking of her favorite video game characters instead. When Tsukasa brought a towel for her, she used her ultimate move, handsome man blur filter, blocking his face from her view. She would tell him about her roach problem, which was why she ran out. Sadly, she didn't bring her wallet or phone either. Tsukasa would laugh at her. She found this quite surprising. She thought he was usually chill and never smiled, but his cute smile would shatter her ultimate technique, which left no other choice. She summoned Momohiki to block out his face. Tsukasa would offer to handle the bug that must not be named, and Anzu was excited, but she quickly tried to play it cool. Seeing how she avoided him, Tsukasa became more curious about her, the exact opposite of what she wanted. So, she accepted his offer, and he would wrap her with a jacket, causing Momohiki to float away, and she saw his face. Anzu was completely defenseless against hot guys in real life. Soon after, this hot guy was inside her house. It was unbelievable. Then, Anzu caught sight of the roach by the corner of her eye, causing her to ram into Tsukasa like a football player, but it only turned out to be the cover of a camera lens. She then realized she was on top of him as they locked eyes in the moment. Just then, the unsightly roach crawled by, causing her to scream wildly and beg Tsukasa to get it. Though the roach was swift, it eventually met its end. Anzu thanked him for his help, and on his way out, Tsukasa properly introduced himself and his class. He also told her not to blatantly ignore him again. However, the storm outside was too much. Even when he decided to sprint home, a wooden log suddenly crashed into the door. Then, they would see on the news that the rainstorm would last the entire night. To make it worse, this hot guy was stranded in Anzu's home, which meant he'd probably spend the night. She barely had a decent talk with him and wasn't ready for this. She then decided to make him food as gratitude for killing the bug. Riri popped up, saying it was time for her to show her cooking skills, but Anzu had smacked them away with a pan. She was sure this was all Riri's fault. And of course it was. Thanks to Riri, she was in this juicy situation. Riri had expected Anzu to run into Tsukasa's arms for help, not tackle him to the ground. Even though it was great, Riri didn't get why it didn't lead to a romantic development. Still, Anzu told them they didn't have to involve the entire city, but Riri assured the damage was being adjusted to prevent real harm. And they also promised to fix the door later. It was time for Anzu to impress with her cooking skills, but she could only make stir-fry. Then, she realized she didn't even need to make an impression. She would simply ask Tsukasa to choose a flavor of instant noodles, ruining Riri's juicy love setup. Since the wizard was behind all this, Anzu figured the storm would last till morning. If resistance was futile, then she would take them head on. She then asked Tsukasa to spend the night and promised not to lay a finger on him, then hurried to get the bath ready. Afterwards, she handed him some of her dad's clothes and allowed him to use the bath first. Riri said something was bound to happen tonight, but Anzu just ignored them. Later, Tsukasa came out of the bath in his clothes, refusing to change because he felt malicious intent with the cat shirt Anzu gave him. Anzu would then show up in a totally goofy pajama setup. There's no way they could get lovey-dovey while she's dressed like this. Riri would then admit she was a formidable foe, even willing to sacrifice her dignity to ruin their plans. The two then began playing a game of reversey, and Anzu wiped the floor with Tsukasa, saying he couldn't beat her in a million years. Feeling pumped up, Tsukasa decided to move to the next board game, a game of sheer luck and zero strategy. As for the stakes, the loser would have to make lunch for the winner to take to school the next day. Then began the turbulent game of life, way past midnight. A sweet romantic development was nowhere in sight as Anzu challenged Tsukasa with a serious poker face. Tsukasa hoped to get even, but both players refused to back down in this ultimate game. While Anzu kept racking up debts, Tsukasa was scoring all the money. It turned out Riri was helping him. Anzu refused to back down, but the outcomes remained the same, her stepping on dog poo and losing all her money. And so, Tsukasa won. But still, he offered to help her prepare the lunch, adding that she should at least make the rolled omelet. After all, she still lost. Tsukasa was shocked to see her add sugar to the omelet. It didn't stop there. She also liked pineapples in sour pork and apples in potato salad. Anzu's cooking skills turned out to be quite horrible. In contrast, Tsukasa's beef wraps were wonderful. He then revealed he worked as a part-time chef at a bar, and also went ahead to make extra delicious sides for the meal, making Anzu feel like she had judged a book by its cover. They actually had fun together. It was nice that she felt at ease with him. She felt they could be friends, so long as they didn't date. So far, she hadn't set herself up as a love interest. She then brought out some cards for them to play. While Tsukasa went to the restroom, Riri approached Anzu, complaining about both of them acting like grade schoolers. The wizard had hoped they would at least run into each other in the shower. Riri considered casting a spell to help them get together, but Anzu boasted she would never fall for such tricks. So, the wizard would then hit her head with the wand, immediately sending Anzu into a deep sleep. Tsukasa tried waking her up, but nothing worked. So, he covered her with a blanket, but as he tried removing her glasses, Anzu would hold his hand and cuddle it. Dreaming it was Momohiki, Tsukasa couldn't help but admit it had been a while since he had this much fun. Running through the darkness, Anzu sought her chocolate video games in Momohiki. She then saw and hugged her cat tightly, giving him many kisses. Suddenly, the cat took a muscular, humanoid form and ran away, believing Anzu preferred Tsukasa over him. She would then be woken up by her cat alarm, only to find herself on Tsukasa's lap. Anzu screamed, freaking out and scrambling to the furthest couch. She was unable to remember a single thing he explained, and couldn't believe she laid her head on his lap for the entire night. She was so ashamed, but Tsukasa pointed out that with her goofy pajamas, She shouldn't have any shame left. With the weather clear, he decided to head back home and prepare for school. Anzu would then realize she forgot to give him his lunch, and she dreaded the thought of all the girls making a fuss if she handed it to him in school. Later, she recalled holding Tsukasa's hand through the night and sleeping on his lap, but wondered why she couldn't remember how she dozed off. Just then, Tsukasa would ring her doorbell with bad news about his room. Getting there, she couldn't believe his whole room was submerged by the Tokyo Bay. He wasn't sure if the pipes burst or not, but only his room was affected. His books and uniform were soaked as well. Anzu was sure this was definitely Riri's doing. Tsukasa then borrowed Anzu's phone to let the school know he'd be absent for the day to take care of things, and it seemed like everything was fine for now, until another stream of water broke through the roof. Tsukasa would then take Anzu's number in case he needed help. She handed him his lunch and had used a weird wrapping so his fangirls wouldn't come after her. Parting ways, Riri would pop out, secretly laughing at Anzu. While having lunch with Saki, Anzu wondered if she should tell her about the situation with Tsukasa, but she didn't want her best friend caught up in her mess. Tsukasa would then call her after buying a new phone and ask to meet up with her after school. Considering he was broke, Anzu felt terrible since it was all her fault in the first place, but then remembered it was all really because of Riri. Meanwhile, Reina and Yukika approached the teacher, asking about Tsukasa. The man was just about to call him, explaining that Tsukasa had called the school earlier today. Reina insisted on getting his number, and when she was refused, she forced the phone on loudspeaker. But of course, it turned out to be Anzu's phone. Tsukasa was at a restaurant when he noticed some girls eyeing him. He regretted not bringing a hat. Even the waitress couldn't keep her gaze away. Shortly after, he was relieved to see Anzu walk in. But that relief was taken away when Reina and Yukika came in with her. This put him in a bit of a bad mood. The two girls had surrounded her back in school, asking why Tsukasa called from her phone. Anzu explained that he lived nearby, and they decided to tag along with her to go meet up with him, though it didn't look like she had much of a choice. Still, Tsukasa grabbed Anzu and stormed out, making it clear to the other girls that he had plans with just her. Anzu was worried about ditching them, but Tsukasa didn't care at all. When she brought up Reina having a crush on him, he was tired of all that as well. He only dealt with it because they were classmates, but he wasn't interested in dating at the moment. However, he saw Anzu differently. She never tried approaching him, which made him more relaxed around her. Anzu said she was glad, while thinking about how Riri had taken all her favorite things, remembering she was in a hostage situation. But then she remembered Tsukasa wasn't interested in dating, and pointed out they were in the same boat. Anzu had other priorities. In other words, they could be friends and never worry about developing feelings. Afterwards, Tsukasa asked if he could put his belongings at her place for the time being. He had part-time work for now, and a real estate agent was helping him look for a room. Anzu considered letting him stay another night, but realized this was all Riri's plan too. They went way overboard. Just as Anzu offered to help Tsukasa pay for his phone, he got a call from the real estate agent. Reflecting internally, Anzu admitted to herself that she also felt relaxed around him, and it cheered her up to know they were thinking the same thing. Tsukasa would come back with bad news though. There were no rooms available. Well, there was one property with a move-out date, but it would be a month before then. Instead of letting her pay for his phone, Tsukasa asked if he could stay with her for the next month. Yeah, Riri was surely working overtime for this. Anzu freaked out, but Tsukasa explained he wasn't going to be a freeloader. He offered to help with chores. On his days off, he'd make dinner, and he'd even make lunch for her. If there were creepy bugs, he'd take care of them as well. Considering she lived close to his workplace, it'd be a huge help for him. Anzu was conflicted about what to do. Fearing the wizard's capabilities, there could be a lot of lucky encounters. Her home would be full of romantic traps. Anzu rushedly told him he could stay at her place anytime, all thanks to her guilt. She also knew her parents wouldn't have any issue with it, since Riri was the puppet master holding their strings. The next morning, she thought it was all a dream. How could she possibly be living with a hot guy? But that hot guy was in her kitchen making food. The sight was quite uncanny for her. She felt he was an early riser, but Tsukasa just called her a slouch. She remembered him being so exhausted last night. Tsukasa cleaned his flooded room, washed his clothes at the laundromat, and still had work. Now, he was making lunch for them and offered to make breakfast as well. She got free lunch and some tasty breakfast. To top it all off, Tsukasa was good looking. For Anzu, this was a good life in its own way. But just as she thought about how Riri had stopped appearing, the wizard popped up right beside her. Anzu complained about Riri's methods because she felt bad for Tsukasa. However, Riri found that ironic, considering her mouth was stuffed with his food. Anzu would then mock Riri for choosing the wrong guy because Tsukasa had no interest in dating. In return, Riri smacked Anzu, reminding her that romance was all about falling in love unexpectedly. Riri also reminded her that a dating sim life surrounded by hot guys would be her reality. Anzu then heard the doorbell ring and saw someone in their school uniform at her door. Wondering who it could be, she opened it and unexpectedly saw another tall, handsome guy. His name was Junta. Anzu had no idea who he was, but then he would pat her head, reminding her they were childhood friends. Shortly, Tsukasa stepped out. With the two guys staring at each other, Anzu realized he was about to enter a fray. Of liking the video and subscribing to my channel, because here at My Shoujo Weekly, I'm spending tireless hours making videos for you in the genres of romance, action, and drama. So come on, hit that subscribe or I give up. I'm just gonna die. Anzu nervously explained to Junta that Tsukasa was at her place because he was troubled and needed somewhere to stay. As she rushed inside to get her bag, the two guys awkwardly stared at each other. Anzu kicked Riri all around the room, demanding to know what they had done. Riri, of course, explained that every dating sim featured a childhood friend. Who doesn't know about a childhood friend romance? The wizard showed Anzu and Junta being inseparable as children, and that friendship would develop into attraction. But Anzu never had such a handsome childhood friend. However, Riri claimed they had become friends in grade school, a blatant lie. Junta was the sporty type, who was active in his baseball team. He attended a different part of middle school, which was why he hadn't seen Anzu in 3 years. And the most important part, he's had a crush on her since elementary school. So, Riri told Anzu to just accept his feelings. Anzu was horrified. She brought out a talisman and tried to banish Riri, and when they teased her not to be shy, she threatened to grate the wizard into smithereens. On their way to school, Junta expressed being taken by surprise earlier. He felt Tsukasa could have stayed somewhere else instead of her place, and wondered if he was trustworthy. Anzu assured him that Tsukasa was pretty kind, plus he had grown tired of girls due to his popularity. On the other hand, she thought Junta was the one who wasn't okay. He was basically being controlled by the devilish wizard, and her conscience felt this was all wrong. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew against them. As Junta reached for her, she seemed flustered by his good looks, but he told her to remain still because a Hercules beetle had gotten on her hair. Junta managed to get it off. The bug was so unsightly, the show converted it to a crepe. Anzu was repulsed by how nasty its belly looked, and she told Junta to toss it away. However, he believed the beetle could fetch about 10,000 yen. Letting it go, Anzu thought her money was flying away. They chased after it, but that's when Riri would fly in, stabbing Anzu's leg with her wand, causing her to fall into Junta's arms. Because of his strength, she could see he didn't play baseball for nothing. He was such a kind guy as well. Just then, he noticed the beetle had messed up her hairstyle and offered to tie it for her. While brushing through Anzu's hair, Junta mentioned how she used to be called Bushy Hair and Annie back in elementary school. This was definitely a memory Riri had implanted. Anzu recalled only Ryuya and his friends called her those names. She always played games with them, especially Cat Ranger. Though the game never got popular, the series supposedly had a lot of depth. When Junta asked which games she played, she dreadfully remembered that all her games had been confiscated. He also hadn't figured out her hair yet, which made her wonder if he was clumsy. Saki would then meet up with them and recognize Junta. Anzu wondered how she knew him, but she figured Riri had manipulated her memories as well. Saki then decided to help with Anzu's hair, and also said scrunchies would suit her more. When she asked Junta's opinion, he blushed, nervously agreeing. But Anzu didn't want him looking like that, and she knew exactly what Saki was trying to do. She wasn't sure how the day would turn out with a new childhood friend, but Junta was easy to get along with. He shared a lot of memories with her, and also got along with Saki just fine. He was just like a real childhood friend. Meanwhile, Makoto met up with Tsukasa at the train station. Shortly after, Reina came crying about how Tsukasa had left them the other day and gone with another girl. Makoto was shocked to hear this, but Tsukasa clarified that girl was just a friend. Seeing his new phone, Reina asked that they exchanged numbers, but Tsukasa declined and told her to stop following him, getting Makoto's number right in front of her. Side note, these types of girls are so annoying. Don't be like her. After gym class, Tsukasa bumped into Junta, resulting in an awkward greeting. Makoto surprisingly knew Junta as the rookie prodigy of their baseball team, adding that Junta might even get scouted for pro baseball. Hearing this, Tsukasa thought the guy was quite impressive, but he remembered how Anzu wasn't interested in dating him. On the other hand, Junta heard Tsukasa was the guy from class 7, whom all the girls loved to swarm around. His friend added that Tsukasa's score in the last midterm was within the top 10. Then, when two girls, the team assistants of the baseball team, approached Junta's group, they knew exactly who Tsukasa was, the handsome guy from class 7. Junta asked how they would feel living with a hot guy all day. Amin replied that she'd definitely have a crush on him, and this in turn crushed Junta's spirit. One of the guys called Junta out for flirting with his childhood friend, but Junta clarified Anzu was just a friend, even though deep down, she wasn't just cute to him. He thought she was so beautiful, and he was madly in love, but he just couldn't say it. Tsukasa would approach Anzu in her class and ask her to come with him. Behind the school, they exchanged their lunch packs because she mistakenly gave him hers. Then, Makoto ran into them, wondering why they were holding lunch boxes. Tsukasa explained the situation, and Makoto didn't seem like he suspected anything. Still, Tsukasa warned him not to let anyone know. And after Makoto and Anzu introduced themselves to each other, Makoto realized she was the one Reina was talking about. While they went to sit and eat, Anzu thought of Makoto as quite friendly. He got jealous, seeing how delicious Anzu's lunch looked. She admitted Tsukasa was a better cook than her, but he retorted she was just terrible at cooking. Anzu's eye quickly caught sight of some chocolate Makoto was having for lunch. He happily offered to share, but when she reached for it, her hand was blocked by an invisible barrier. Unknown to the three of them, Reina and Yukika were watching. After school, the two of them approached Anzu. Meanwhile, Junta went over to Anzu's class to look for her, but Saki told him she'd already left. He would then bump into Tsukasa and nervously ask him if he'd seen Anzu, but at that moment, Tsukasa caught sight of her with Reina. They followed discreetly and began eavesdropping on the conversation. Reina then questioned if Anzu liked Tsukasa. Anzu replied he was just a friend, but the two girls couldn't believe she would pass off a hot guy like him as just a friend. Anzu made it clear she wasn't interested in dating at all. They didn't know she was bearing the loss of all her favorite things to get through this. So, Reina asked her to set up a date between her and Tsukasa. She started sending her contact to Anzu without giving her much of a choice. Recalling that Tsukasa wasn't interested in dating, Anzu refused their plan. She wasn't about to force Tsukasa into something he didn't want. Suddenly, a blonde-haired girl came to Anzu, saying Junta was looking for her. Anzu had no idea who she was. Was she supposed to be another childhood friend? The girl then noticed Reina and Yukika, calling them the two cutest girls from class 7. She went on, admiring their features, especially their push-up bras, continuing to tease Reina a lot. The girl mentioned the fake cup size wouldn't help with Tsukasa. Embarrassed, Reina and Yukika left. The girl's familiar voice, the way she politely trashed on others, and the obvious star themes. Anzu realized she was Riri. She had no idea the wizard was a girl. Tsukasa and Junta called out to Anzu, making her jolt in panic. She wondered how long they'd been listening. Tsukasa explained they followed her and he was ready to step in if things went south. But he completely messed up the timing. Anzu uppercutted Riri into the ceiling after recalling what she had said about her C-cup size. Soon after, Riri introduced herself as Anzu's cousin. She claimed Anzu had told her all about them, and then she proposed they all head to Anzu's house for a dinner party, saying the universe had brought them all together. To save Junta from the fake romance brought on by the devil, and also for her sake, Anzu decided to show him that she wasn't his type. She put on the lamest shirt she could find, but Riri declared, "Not today," as she hit her with a hammer. Anzu asked when they had adopted a human form and what happened to their ugly doll form. Riri then explained she was here to support her. Now Anzu was given another option, Junta, the handsome childhood friend, but was still trying to wiggle her way out. That's why Riri was here. She was determined to make Anzu fall in love with the two hot guys at this dinner party. The two of them began wrestling, as Anzu refused to change into something girly and sexy. While they were struggling, Riri let go of Anzu's shirt, causing her to slowly fall into Tsukasa, who was right outside. At this point, he felt like he always got hurt whenever she was around. Meanwhile, Riri was smiling sinisterly in the corner. Anzu had fallen right into her trap. Shortly after, Junta came with some fried chicken his mom had made. He could smell the scent of curry being cooked by Tsukasa. The curry was super delicious. Anzu felt it was even better than her mom's cooking. Tsukasa was handsome, smart, and even cooked. Junta felt he couldn't compare to such a guy. But Riri could see he was unaware of his own charm. He finished his food quickly and asked for seconds. Anzu wanted to go for seconds as well. But then Tsukasa asked about her diet. Junta asked why she was trying to lose weight, but she clarified that she was only cutting out chocolate. Riri teased that chocolate was delicious, but she was of course the reason why Anzu couldn't eat it. While Anzu went to get seconds, Riri suggested Tsukasa stay for another month. After all, it wasn't safe for girls to stay alone these days. Anzu grabbed Riri's shoulder, giving her the subtle sign to shut up. Tsukasa didn't want to impose, and Anzu was glad he was a man of common sense. But Riri wouldn't stop there, instead suggesting there were vacant rooms for Junta to stay as well. Anzu couldn't take it anymore. Riri was wrecking her home. Suddenly, Riri proposed a game of rock, paper, scissors, and the two losers would have to go buy ice cream. Anzu then saw Riri waving her wand, which was how she normally casted her spells. She then flicked Riri's forehead, sending her crashing out of the room. With that chance, she nabbed the wand, figuring Riri couldn't use magic without it. Riri had planned to control the outcome to make Tsukasa or Junta go with Anzu alone, but Anzu saw through her plan and wouldn't let it happen. Anzu then dragged Riri off to get ice cream with her. Outside, she threatened to stick the wand in a blender and crush it up. If Riri wanted it back, Anzu wanted her to get on her knees and beg. Riri tried to fight for the wand, but it inadvertently ended up landing in poop, and once the wand was dirtied, it couldn't be used until the energy was cleansed. Meanwhile, Tsukasa told Junta he didn't need to worry about him, saying he'd be worried as well if a random guy suddenly moved in with his crush. Flustered, Junta mistakenly dropped a plate, causing it to shatter. He couldn't believe he was being so obvious. He worried Anzu might have caught on, but Tsukasa assured him she was quite dense. Tsukasa then told Junta that Anzu only considered him a friend, but Junta believed it wasn't up to them, and that as long as she was happy, he was too. His goal would be to keep working hard to be her equal. Soon after, the two girls would return. They all enjoyed ice cream, and once Junta had left, Anzu apologized to Tsukasa for troubling him, but he didn't mind. It had been a while since he ate with people like that. Considering he lived by himself, she wondered if there was a reason, but decided not to pry, hoping he would open up to her one day. The next morning, on their way to school, Anzu worried someone would see her and Tsukasa walking together, but he told her no one from their school lived in this area. Soon, they ran into Junta, and as Anzu gave a warm smile, he would blush. His friends wondered if she was dating Tsukasa, but Junta made it clear they were just neighbors. Saki and some other girls were curious about Anzu and Tsukasa's relationship after seeing them walk to school together. Anzu explained they only lived close by. Of course, she couldn't tell them more than that. Saki noted how Anzu was never interested in dating, but now it was like she was in a romance comic. The girls were super jealous of her and told her not to hog all the boys. Surprisingly, they wanted to come over for a sleepover sometime, which Anzu agreed to. Later, she fell to her knees at the door. She was tired, but ready to play video games, have some chocolate, and momohiki for cuddles. Sadly, Anzu could only sulk in bed to distract herself. On the other hand, when Junta returned home, his mother asked him to deliver some stewed potatoes to Anzu. By the time she woke up, it was already too dark. Hearing some noise, she wondered if Tsukasa was back, but when she looked at the time, his shift couldn't be over, leading her to believe Riri was scheming. She rushed out with a golf club, finding a burglar stealing her mom's underwear. The thief escaped through the window and saw Junta, but he quickly ran away. Anzu then explained to him that the man was an underwear thief, and she proceeded to call the police. Junta would quickly chase after the thief and hold him down until Anzu and the police arrived. Seeing Anzu, the burglar was completely frightened. Anzu felt glad to have Junta there and complimented his speed. Then, she realized her hair was all messed up. He was about to call her beautiful, but quickly cut himself off, instead saying her hair was fine. He was glad she was safe, and didn't know what he'd do if anything happened to her. In this sweet moment, Tsukasa came across them, but quickly walked away to the convenience store. They later explained the situation to the underwear thief, and Tsukasa wondered if she had threatened the thief, but looking at her hair, he couldn't hold in his laughter. While Junta went to take a call from his mother, Anzu asked Tsukasa if he was okay with sleeping on the couch, since the thief had broken the window of the room. As long as no one kept him detained and nodded off, he was fine. Anzu then apologized for that. Shortly after, Junta's mom decided to speak with Anzu and suggested it was best for someone to stay with her like a bodyguard. She had told Junta to stay with her, and before Anzu could say anything about it, his mother cut the call. Anzu was feeling a sense of deja vu from this. Just then, Riri floated into view with her wand. This meant they were all living together. Soon, Junta joined the fray of Anzu's lovely cohabiting life. A truly dreamlike life. Since the two guys wouldn't share a room, Anzu decided to move Tsukasa into her dad's study, which was full of all kinds of cat merch. Feeling too embarrassed to look her in the face, Junta left for practice. Anzu never expected it to lead to this, all thanks to Riri, who was the culprit behind the underwear thief. Anzu's mom had no problem with all that, because the thief stealing her underwear made her still feel attractive. However, Anzu believed things were still in her favor. She got a job at the local convenience store, and since Tsukasa worked and Junta had practice, they wouldn't be spending that much time together. The next morning, she was coerced into making lunch by Tsukasa. She was tired and could barely keep her eyes open to focus. In the end, Junta ended up with a burnt-looking lunch. His friends figured his childhood friend had made it, but he stuttered, claiming it was his brother. He then took a picture of his lunch, smiling warmly to himself, making it obvious that it wasn't his brother who made it. After work, Tsukasa's manager asked him to move to the floor because the customers would love him, but he passed on that. Then, on his way home, a girl tried asking him out to a cafe, but he coldly declined her. Upon getting home, Anzu dragged him to watch the show Saki recommended to them. He told them to watch without him, but she thought it'd be more fun if they all watched together. The next morning, Tsukasa asked Anzu to come shopping with him for summer clothes. He actually wanted to use her as cover to ward off unwanted attention. However, Anzu usually bought her clothes online and didn't know any shops. But Tsukasa would tell her he didn't like online shopping. So, she quickly left to change into a lame outfit. Tsukasa said her jeans were fine, but asked her to change her shirt. She would try on a variety, but turns out she only owned cat-printed shirts. As Tsukasa decided to pick out her shirt instead, Anzu rushed to hide her underwear, which were still drying, but he would tell her he had no interest in elementary school level panties. She would then shove it in his face, trying to prove they were cute, but this only made him uncomfortable. Afterwards, he realized all her tops were cat-printed indoor comfy clothing. Though she claimed they were good for outings, Tsukasa decided she would use her saved-up money to buy clothes too. Anzu completely freaked out. Regardless, he wanted her to have at least one decent outfit for outings. That's when Riri would pop out, assuring him she would find the cutest outfit for Anzu. Her wand was cleansed, so now she could cast spells again. Anzu threatened not to go if Riri messed with her, but Riri replied if she kept talking like that, she'd toss her clothes away, especially the cat-printed ones. Soon after, Anzu showed up with a cute outfit and makeup. She felt a little embarrassed, but Tsukasa was stunned by how cute she looked. He complimented her outfit, saying it suited her, but Anzu only made a weird face. She was all dressed up now, and walking beside a hot guy. Without a doubt, this was a date. At the store, everyone seemed posh looking. This was a completely different world from buying cat merch online. Anzu then asked if Tsukasa loved wearing hats a lot, but turns out he only wore them because he didn't want to be seen. Since it wasn't hiding his face that well, she suggested he added a mask, but Tsukasa explained it only made things worse. When he'd done that before, people would follow him, thinking he was a celebrity. He just couldn't hide his hot guy aura. Seeing how he hated being popular with girls, Anzu wondered if there was a reason he moved out all the way here for high school. She would blush, feeling embarrassed as he caught her staring at him. With their shopping done, Anzu couldn't believe she bought non-cat related merch. She was dressed up, and Tsukasa chose her clothes, even though she had to pay for them. It was as if she was playing right into Riri's trap, but she refused to fall for it. Tsukasa suggested they grab food before leaving, but Anzu excused herself to the bathroom briefly first. So, he was left there, facing the evil eyes of all the girls, gossiping about his hot looks. The pressure became a lot, as two girls were contemplating hitting on him. Tsukasa regretted not finding a more secluded place to wait. He prayed for Anzu to hurry back, and hoped the two girls approaching wouldn't talk to him. Suddenly, his mind flashed to a haunting memory, and he began panting heavily, cold sweat dripping all over his face. Just then, Anzu returned and dragged them off to the perfect shop she had found. They came into a shop selling all sorts of cat merchandise. Anzu was so glad they came here. Her eyes caught sight of a bracelet that looked just like Momohiki, but she felt a little guilty having spent her money already. Tsukasa then offered to pay for it as thanks for today. Anzu thanked him so much for the bracelet, even saying she would use it as a family heirloom. He thought she was being a little dramatic. At that moment, Junta ran into them. He noticed how dressed up Anzu looked and thought she was so cute. Hearing they went out to buy summer clothes, he was heartbroken, looking at Tsukasa like it was all his fault. Meanwhile, Anzu was glad to have another ordinary day. She thought Riri would have tried to pull something on them, but nothing happened. At home, She screamed at the top of her lungs, not because of the horror movie, but because of the unsightly bug that was crawling around the living room. Tsukasa was left to handle it because Junta was too scared as well. Later, Anzu admitted that he'd been a huge help since he got here. Junta, on the other hand, was sulking and apologized for being useless. So she tried to console him. Cohabiting was going well, and it looked like everything was working out. Unbeknownst to Anzu, Riri still had a few tricks she hadn't deployed. The next morning, Tsukasa would rush into Anzu's room to wake her up. Since she had overslept, she quickly prepared and began sprinting to school. She was running so late. Then, she suddenly wondered why she muttered the phrase without giving it a thought. It was just like a typical shoujo heroine morning. It made her wonder if she was going to encounter another love interest. Just as she was passing a corner, she wouldn't meet another hot guy, but a car would crash into her. The driver, Tsuchiya, stepped out, offering to help her up, but she insisted she was fine. However, she didn't expect to meet Hijiri stepping out of the limo, saying there was no need to apologize, since she was the one that leapt in front of their car. She was shocked to see the pretty boy munching on the toast instead of her. Anzu would then be escorted to school in the limo. She apologized for making Hijiri late to school, but he'd respond that a few tardies wouldn't affect his impeccable reputation. But why did an affluent boy like him attend a public school like hers? He assumed she was overjoyed to go to school with him, and his arrogance almost got him a punch in the face. Anzu suppressed her anger. All eyes turned towards Anzu and Hijiri when they arrived at break time. Before she entered her class, Hijiri promised he'd reach out later, but also told her not to get too anxious waiting for his call. However, she wasn't the least bit impressed by him. As he left, Saki and the other girls swarmed Anzu, asking why she came to school with Prince Hijiri of Class 8. Apparently, he was the son of a mega-rich family. The girls were gushing over his royal demeanor, revealing there was even a fan club exclusive to him. Anzu realized Riri must have pulled some kind of trick again. Then, Tsukasa, Makoto, and Junta approached her. Junta expressed how worried he was, but was relieved to see she was fine. He still asked Anzu to see a doctor, but she insisted it was nothing serious. And while Makoto couldn't believe Anzu was friends with Junta, she called him a provisional childhood friend. A few days later, Anzu found herself waiting for Hijiri. Tsuchiya had called her earlier to reserve her time Saturday. Soon after, Hijiri arrived, proudly asking if she camped out here because she couldn't wait to see him. He certainly had his quirks. Hijiri was unimpressed with her commoner clothing and wondered if Anzu was trying to insult him by dressing like a slob. He threw her into the car, vowing to transform her into Cinderella for the day. At a boutique, Anzu stepped out in an elegant dress and heels. Despite her cute charm, Hijiri only said she looked decent and told the stylist to pick lower heels, calling Anzu a big woman. After settling that, he dragged her off to have lunch. Anzu still had no idea what this was all for and asked him to explain properly. He told her they were having a date and pompously assumed she had jumped in front of the car earlier just to approach him for this. Anzu wondered who would be dumb enough to do that, and apparently it had happened a lot since Hijiri's preschool days, and it even got Tsuchiya's license suspended once. However, Anzu of course didn't plan for that accident, so she offered to pay for the dress, but hearing the price was 120,000 yen, she wondered if it was made from the thread of the ancients. Hijiri would tell her this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her to wear a nice dress and dine with him. Anzu asked them to stop the car, and as she got out, she tossed the shoes and earrings to Hijiri, making it clear she wasn't interested in him, bidding him farewell. She was aggravated by the fact that a wealthy brat had her dancing around. His narcissistic and condescending attitude really got on her nerves, but what irked her most was the fact he thought she would stage an accident for the sake of love. Anzu was a fighting warrior who battled against exactly that. Also, wearing that expensive dress made her sweat. The next day, while Hijiri was somewhat sad, lost in thought, Anzu came to return the dress after having it cleaned and strolled off. He tried not to bother himself with the actions of a commoner, but the way she acted towards him left him irritated. He then called Tsuchiya to look into something. After school, Junta was happy to walk home with Anzu since he had no practice. Considering Tsukasa was still at work, she offered to make dinner, knowing it would turn out bad, but Junta was still eager to eat her food. Anzu thought Junta was so kind. Unlike Hijiri, she wanted him to end up with someone he truly loved. and felt she had to get rid of Riri for his sake. Just then, Riri showed up, and Anzu wanted to kill her. She grabbed Riri furiously, questioning why she set Hijiri on her when he was completely impossible to fall in love with. And at that moment, Hijiri showed up in his car, commenting that Anzu was the first woman to lack interest in him. So, he vowed to make her fall under his spell, no matter what it took. He would then pay a visit to her house, offering games, artisan chocolates, and adorable little kittens. Anzu was completely overwhelmed to see the 3 greatest things she loved. Hijiri boasted that on top of his elegant looks, he also had the wealth to make all her dreams come true. He was certain she couldn't help but fall for him at this point. Before Anzu could respond to him, Riri quickly dragged her away and explained she could have the gifts on the condition that she falls in love with Hijiri. The offer was truly tempting. Junta would then ask Hijiri if he liked Anzu, but that wasn't a feeling Hijiri felt towards others. He believed it was a feeling everyone felt towards him. He found it unforgivable that Anzu wasn't interested in him. But hearing this, Junta would then let him know Anzu wouldn't become his friend just because of his good looks and wealth. Anzu smacked Riri's face, telling her she didn't understand humans at all. She staged unnatural encounters, manipulated emotions, and used material things to force relationships. Anzu didn't want to be underestimated anymore. She then returned, asking Hijiri to go home and rejecting his gifts. She pushed him out, telling him to boast about his wealth when he earned it. And above all, she was only willing to talk if he brought Momohiki. Anzu thought if she'd agreed to Riri's conditions, maybe the wizard would have undone Junta's manipulated memory. She then apologized for dragging him into all this, but he didn't mind being involved if she needed him. He was so kind, it was almost painful. This would cause Junta to recall a memory of Anzu standing up for him, even though her friends threatened not to play video games with her again. If she played with him, it really touched his heart. To her surprise, Hijiri would become the new hire at the convenience store she worked for. She was even more shocked to see he was quite good with customers, and so he became a sensation as a convenience store prince. His pictures went viral on social media with the hashtag #KonbiniPrince, leading to more foot traffic. After some time working together, Anzu was surprised to see Hijiri's diligent effort. He was a quick learner, and he was picking up a lot of shifts. After her work shift, she bumped into Tsuchiya, who stopped her to explain that Hijiri had always gotten what he wanted. Hence, he lacked a bit of common sense. His father worried about this and sent him to a public school to learn how to live like an ordinary person, but his innate elegance warded off anything ordinary. However, after meeting Anzu, Hijiri was gaining interest in ordinary living. Tsuchiya thanked her deeply for this. Once they got their paychecks, Hijiri offered to buy something for her, since this was with money he earned himself. He told her not to misunderstand him though, saying, "I didn't do all this for you." He was a complete tsundere now. He offered her a bag, shoes, jewelry, and a date with him, but she declined all those things. After recalling how hard he worked, Anzu opted for eating ice pops at the playground. Though it tasted cheap to him, Hijiri couldn't help but admit it wasn't bad. The moment almost sparked romance, but Anzu quickly slapped herself out of it, vowing not to let her guard down again. Returning home, she found Tsukasa's cell phone and was surprised to see he was getting a text from a girl. Anzu ran out of the store, giggling to herself after buying a cat photo book. With that, and pictures of Momohiki her mother sent, she had a lot more cat photos. It was chicken soup for her soul. Since it had already been a month, she wondered if Tsukasa had found a new place yet. Life with the 3 of them had been quite fun for her, and she admitted she would miss him. While recalling the text she'd seen on Tsukasa's phone, a man bumped into her and spilled his coffee on her book. Luckily, the book was saved, but the man blamed her for the spill on his shoes. He grabbed her, demanding repayment, and that's when Arisa would step in to save Anzu. The man was completely mesmerized by her beauty, and he offered to let Anzu go if Arisa followed him. She locked his arms and told him to apologize to Anzu. However, he didn't think it was a big deal, saying it was just a book. Hearing this, Anzu got angry. The man clearly had no idea what this meant to her, especially with her 3 basic needs confiscated. She began drilling his head with the book, saying she hoped the cat would pee all over his mattress. With the charm so blinding, Arisa told the man to work on himself. Even Anzu was captivated by her beauty, thinking she could easily fall for her. She had no idea how to react. Just then, Tsukasa met up with him, and after realizing who Anzu was, Arisa introduced herself as Tsukasa's older sister. Staring at the beauty of the siblings, Anzu felt they had to be a protected species. Arisa thanked Anzu for letting Tsukasa stay at her place for an entire month. Anzu didn't mind, feeling she was the reason for him being here in the first place. Arisa had no idea he'd been here so long. As Anzu and Tsukasa went to fetch Arisa a drink, Anzu explained how Arisa saved her from the station grunt. She confessed she'd cursed him with, "I hope a cat pees on your mattress," making Tsukasa laugh at her wacky insult. Later, she asked Tsukasa why he lived alone, and Arisa whispered to her that they had a crappy dad. Tsukasa didn't seem to be comfortable with the topic, but the sister was glad to see he lived with someone like Anzu. When he left to take a call from Makoto, Anzu told Arisa that Makoto was one of his friends, and she also explained Tsukasa was popular with all the girls at school. Arisa asked Anzu if she liked him, but Anzu swore on her life with honor that she didn't. She admitted at first she didn't think Tsukasa was really that nice, but over time realized he was a very kind person. And now Tsukasa was a friend she could be relaxed around. Arisa revealed her brother was a lot more easygoing and friendly in the past, but after an incident in junior high, he'd been closed off since. That's why she was surprised to see him smiling after all this time. She noted Anzu was nice, and was shocked that her brother had a female friend, considering he avoided girls. Tsukasa had tried not to get involved at first, but admitted Anzu was different. Back in the house, Arisa jokingly suggested he stay a bit longer. However, Anzu was actually okay with it as long as he didn't mind. He'd been a great help, and she's been enjoying her life with him and Junta. She was thinking Riri would try to spring a trap if it was just her and Junta, and above all else, Tsukasa was the only one who could handle the roaches. So he agreed to stay. Arisa assumed he kept quiet about Anzu because he didn't want her to see him smile. Before she could ask about something else, he quickly cut her off, making it clear he just felt comfortable around Anzu, and that was all he needed for now. When Tsukasa returned, Anzu was a bit panicky, hoping her outfit was okay and that she wasn't rude to Arisa. Tsukasa thought she wasn't dressed out of the ordinary, but could see now Anzu cared more about her appearance ever since they went shopping together. He began trying to tell her about why he lived alone, but decided to leave it for another day. Riri would then pop out congratulating her on getting Arisa's approval. Though Anzu hadn't seen her in a while, she grabbed the wizard and slammed her between her palms. A few days later, Riri recounted how Anzu avoided all romantic developments, despite making her the heroine of a dating sim. She couldn't report this to HQ, and felt she was lacking the skills to make Anzu fall in love. So, she asked Anzu to take her on a mock date to learn what love was all about. She switched into a male form, tempting to reward Anzu with the cat-hooded pajamas she saw at the store earlier. Anzu immediately agreed to the plan. When Riri tried holding her hand, Anzu avoided him like he was a creep. She didn't want someone to spot them and get the wrong idea. However, Anzu would immediately grab his hand as soon as he offered her another cat item. Riri proposed they watch a movie, believing a pair was sure to grow closer while watching something romantic in the dark. Their hands would touch and lips would overlap. He picked a classic romance movie that was a real tearjerker. Seeing it was about terminal mental illness, Anzu hoped Riri wouldn't get the wrong idea. Kasu and Makoto would run into them and notice they were holding hands. In his male form, the wizard introduced himself as Ryo Fushigi, Anzu's cousin and Riri's twin brother. He claimed he and Anzu were enjoying a date, making her furiously drag him off. She then threatened to sue him for slander. Seeing he didn't drag Tsukasa into this, Anzu wondered if Riri was really trying to learn about romance. Still, no matter what came out of this, she would crush all his plans. In the theater, Riri noticed no one was cuddling as they watched. He felt that maybe the movie wasn't right, until he saw Anzu crying. With her still emotional after it was over, Riri still didn't understand her. He only saw the movie as a fictional tale about some characters. Anzu questioned Riri's thought process at first, but reasoned he was a wizard, not an actual human. Of course he didn't understand. Riri then wanted to try boba next, though he implied they looked like rabbit droppings. Anzu warned him to watch his mouth, but when she mentioned wanting the chocolate-flavored drink, he would go ahead to say chocolate looked like poop. After a sip, Riri took back everything he said about boba being like rabbit droppings, now saying they were more like frog eggs. He then stole a sip of Anzu's drink to imply they had an indirect kiss, and when he offered to share his drink like couples did, she declined. Storming across the hallway, Anzu caught sight of Hijiri and Tsuchiya. She was shocked to see that Hijiri was still taking his job seriously. Riri then thanked him for taking care of his Anzu, but Anzu made it clear that she didn't belong to him. Hijiri tried claiming he didn't care who Anzu spent time with, but Riri cut him off, recalling that he was the one she turned down. Hijiri retorted he could entertain her better than Riri now, causing a love rivalry to spark. Anzu warned Hijiri not to fall for Riri's provocations. She then angrily dragged him away to continue their mock date. Riri then explained to her that with a rival in sight, the other guys would be more serious about pursuing her, but Anzu didn't think they saw him as a love interest. Continuing their date, they visited a photo booth, claw machine, and a gift shop. Anzu hated to admit it, but she had fun. Riri showed his knowledge of romantic scenarios, but he barely knew about anything else. To him, Anzu was the abnormal one. He believed it was human nature for them to choose what was in front of them. Anzu didn't see anything wrong with herself, but compared to others, she was especially stubborn. She swore to get what was important to her with her own strength. And seeing her determination, Riri threatened she wouldn't get to see Momohiki ever again. On their way home, Riri thanked her for spending time with him and promised to come up with new plans. Out of nowhere, he grabbed Anzu by the waist and planted a kiss on her cheek. Embarrassed, she tried to wipe it off before seeing Junta, who was traumatized by what just happened. On another day after school, Anzu took notice of Junta, working hard as always. She considered stopping by to watch him practice, but wait, she couldn't get too close to him, or else Riri might put them in some kind of situation. Riding the train back, she thought about how cute the baseball team assistant was, and that if Junta wasn't under Riri's spell, he would surely fall in love with a girl like her. She felt terrible about getting him involved in her life. The train stopped, and Anzu would be surprised to see her old classmates, Riporin and Amin. The two girls had just been talking about hosting a reunion, and since Anzu was free right now, they decided to hang out for a bit. They caught up at a restaurant. We learned Anzu hadn't seen Amin since elementary, and even though she had run into Riporin at the station once before, they couldn't exchange numbers since Anzu didn't have a phone then. She played game apps too much and wasn't allowed to have a phone until she was older. Amin chuckled, hearing Anzu hadn't changed at all. She's always played video games with boys. At first, it was just Tanta and her playing Cat Ranger. Amin remembered him. He was a chubby boy with curly hair. Anzu didn't even know his full name. But for Amin, it was at the tip of her tongue until she finally blurted, Junta Hayama. Anzu was at a loss. That Junta was that very boy that played games with her. She was sweating as the two girls reminisced about their elementary days. She recalled asking him to play Cat Rangers when she spotted his limited edition Cat Ranger trinket. She felt dumbfounded, not realizing Tanta wasn't his real name. His change was way too drastic for her. With the two friends hearing Junta attended Anzu's school, she explained he fully blossomed, as if a plankton grew into an elephant. They wanted to see him, and when Anzu called him over, the girls' mouths were agape. Riporin dropped her fork. They were hysterical, unable to believe this big guy was Tanta. He played sports, and he was handsome. His iconic curly hair was also long gone. Riporin invited him to an elementary school reunion, and he agreed to go since Anzu was going. She was a little worried since he had a game that day, and he practiced at home when team practice was done, and he picked her up from work too. Hearing all this, Riporin just had to ask how long the two had been dating, and Anzu screeched it wasn't like that at all. She had no idea he was her real childhood friend, on top of the fact he might actually like her. Now that she knew that, she was flustered. She felt like she wanted to dig a hole and count eggs before they hatched. What a combination of idioms. In her room, Riri was excited to dress Anzu up for the reunion, but Anzu would shove her against the wall, wanting to know what this was all about. Junta wasn't a fake childhood friend that was created out of thin air. Riri teased Anzu for being stupid. She never said she manipulated a random boy, and it was Anzu's fault for failing to notice how much he's changed. His feelings didn't come from magic. He was simply in love with her. In fact, wizards aren't allowed to manipulate emotions, and if they were, Riri would have cast a spell on Anzu first to be done with it. All she did was reunite the two of them earlier than it would have taken. Riri explained after the freshman's welcoming ceremony. Junta tried talking to her, but she hurried home to play a video game she really wanted to beat. That was her problem. She ignored Junta every time. Every day, as soon as school ended, she ran home to play video games like she was trying to break records for the fastest student to return home, all while Junta was busy with practice. He wasn't able to speak with her. It was so annoying, Riri cut to the chase. Anzu didn't want any of this. She just wanted her stuff returned. But Riri knew if she hadn't taken those things, Anzu's life would have been void of romance. Anzu tried to argue she couldn't enjoy romance in exchange for her favorite things, so Riri would counter by pointing out Anzu was a non-heroine. She needed to be forced into it, or she'd never realize what she was passing up, likely until the day she would die. Anzu questioned why she was being treated like an exception. Bringing up her best friend Saki didn't care about romance either, and Riri explained Saki was so popular with guys, she didn't need help. Riri's romance plan was to make Anzu's love life matter more than her three favorite things. Anzu didn't care about this plan though. Even knowing Junta was Tanta, it didn't change the fact that they were just friends. Anzu thought back to when she asked Ryuya why Tanta wasn't hanging out with them anymore. She wanted to play more games with Tanta, but Ryuya told her Tanta was tired of playing Cat Rangers. This was the start of things to come. Where the old classmates were meeting for a reunion, Ryuya was pumped to hear Anzu was coming, even betting she'd show up in lame cat prints. That's when Anzu showed up asking what was wrong with cats. While the girls praised her for dressing normally, the guys seemed to be in disbelief. Anzu felt the need to show off a little, when in reality, she had gotten help getting dressed from Riri and Tsukasa. Ryuya hit her with the, "Don't act like you're better than us just because you changed a bit." And Anzu responded by saying he hadn't changed much, especially his height. Although he argued he was still due for a growth spurt, and she was just too tall. At the bowling alley, the guys called for boys versus girls. Losing team had to tell everyone the name of their first crush. And oh no, only video game characters came to Anzu's mind. The girls were discouraged at first, but Anzu was confident. She was a demon king when it came to anything game related. It was on. Taking her first round, Anzu read the waxing of the lane, and envisioning the pins as Riri, she won flawlessly. Now that the boys had lost, she wanted them on their knees. The guys went one by one admitting their crushes, and when one of them said theirs was Amin, she coldly told him no, and his soul left his body. It came to Ryuya's turn. Anzu was glad Junta wasn't here right now, because she'd feel bad with him having to admit she was his crush. Ryuya answered his was his kindergarten teacher, a boring answer. He challenged the girls to a revenge match of air hockey, and after losing, the guys had to buy the ladies ice cream. Ryuya wasn't done though, now challenging Anzu to karaoke. He lost again, and Anzu had to tease him for pouting afterwards. This was nothing new. He never won against her. He tried to tell her she was being annoying, and Reaperin would butt in, saying he had no right to speak since he cheated on a girl. Anzu then got a text from Junta, so she decided to go get him. None of the boys knew who he was until the girls pointed out he was their friend Tanta. Hearing he had a game today, they thought he was still bad at sports, making the two girls chuckle about what they were about to see. And bringing Junta in, the rest of the friends couldn't believe he was the same guy. Taller, handsome, the guys even knew about Junta Hayama of Shuken High's baseball team, but were surprised to learn he was their Tanta. One of the boys shook his hand. He was quite the fan of high school baseball. When one of them asked if he had a girlfriend, Reaperin pointed to Anzu, making her spit out her drink. But Junta assured them they weren't a thing. The rest of the friends thought they were definitely fitting though, since they always got along. Except for Ryuya, who asked why they were groveling towards him. He was condescending, thinking Tanta was feeling superior to them now. Anzu then stopped him to ask what was wrong with someone who worked hard getting pampered. She pointed out that Junta didn't enjoy showing off. He worked hard day and night, bearing everyone's hopes and dreams. She didn't want Ryuya brushing him off as just some handsome guy with nothing going for him. Getting irritated, Ryuya got up to head home. Anzu went to chase after, and Ryuya apologized for spoiling the mood, but he knew it'd be better once he was gone. Anzu dragged him back, telling Ryuya she never thought he was boring, and asking why he was getting jealous. He tried to argue she must be sick of him now, but she thought his cynical personality was what made him fun. He used to even play dirty tricks when they gamed together. He could hardly take what she was saying as a compliment. The rest of the friends snuck in to eavesdrop as Anzu told Ryuya they would be understanding. Ryuya sighed, saying she hadn't changed at all, admitting that since it had been a few years, he thought he was over her, and that she was his first crush. The friends gasped, and as he tried to say he still liked her, she cut him off with, sorry, but no. Her reason? She couldn't possibly date a cheater, and even though he said he liked her, he still dated other girls. His next answer wasn't any better. He tried saying they went to different middle schools, and he couldn't resist other cute girls. But she was still on his mind, even when he was with them. When someone finally confessed to him, he thought things would work out, but before he knew it, he cheated. Still, he couldn't understand why he liked Anzu. She was blunt, not sexy, and she blew ginger ale out of her nose earlier. Grabbing her hand, he asked if he had a chance, and this actually made her flush? She of course told him no, and that she wanted to be with someone she could trust. He wondered if she meant Junta, and when she answered she didn't think Junta liked her, Ryuya would shout he obviously did. The other two girls had to hold him back, then they'd laugh, having watched him get rejected. He didn't want them making light of his pain, but knew he was a laughingstock for liking her. Ryuya then apologized to Junta for letting his jealousy get the best of him. He acknowledged Junta's hard work, and the friends had a lighthearted moment. With the girls heading back in for more karaoke, Ryuya apologized for lying to Junta back in elementary school. He had told Junta that Anzu wanted to play Cat Rangers with them now, and that she was done playing with him. He pushed Junta away from her, and ever since that day, Junta barely spoke to her and moved on. Junta was just glad Anzu didn't get tired of him, and thanked Ryuya for feeling guilty all these years. Ryuya couldn't believe how nice Junta was, but quickly declared he hadn't given up on Anzu. Opening up the door to the karaoke room, all the friends congratulated Ryuya on a happy rejection, celebrating it to the end of the night. After her night shift, Anzu saw Junta, Tsukasa, and Tsuchiya waiting for her. Shortly after, Hijiri came out and found out Tsuchiya was here, greeting Anzu's friends. He recognized Tsukasa since their classes were next to each other, and he also kept track of students with excellent grades, which meant Anzu and Junta weren't worth noticing for him. Seeing the height difference between the three guys, Anzu assured Hijiri it wasn't all about size, but he hadn't even said anything. Still, she was sure it probably bothered him. On their way home, Anzu couldn't believe both boys came to get her. They were so kind. She had grown accustomed to them spending their days together, and thought about how she could put a stop to Riri's ridiculous plan. They would bump into Saki, leaving Anzu confused as to why she was here. Apparently, she hadn't checked her phone. Saki also questioned why the two boys were with her. When they got home, Anzu explained how they all ended up living under the same roof together. Saki felt bad for coming unannounced, but Anzu said it was alright. After all, she'd been meaning to tell her about this situation. Saki then explained her dad was working a night shift, and they were a single-parent family. When he left, her older brother invited all his friends to the house and kicked her out. Furious, Anzu decided to call him and give him a piece of her mind. Before Saki left, she told him that she hoped they all crossed to the other side by the time she was home. She also told her dad about it so that he might really deal with them. Anzu thought Saki was quite bold, though she looked the part of a typical frail heroine. She recalled the time in junior high when a boy teased Saki about her cup size, but she shot back, asking how many inches he had on him. Her words were so shocking, they froze. Saki was excited to have a sleepover in Anzu's room. She noticed one of Anzu's Cat Ranger plushies and asked if she had the game. Sadly, Anzu had neither the game nor her console, thanks to Riri. Then, she wondered if Saki would understand her predicament. Though magic was hard to believe, if there was anyone who could hear her out, it had to be Saki. Just as Anzu was about to tell Saki her secret, she was cut off by an upset stomach and rushed off to the bathroom. Saki then saw Tsukasa coming up the stairs and said she was glad it was him and Junta who were living with Anzu. Junta was such a nice guy, and she felt she and Tsukasa were alike. Not in terms of personality, but in how they got dragged into trouble a lot. She then told him not to worry about Anzu too much, because she was trustworthy. In the bathroom, Anzu wondered if she had eaten something bad. That's when Riri popped out, telling her she wasn't allowed to reveal the plan to others. It was in the fine print, but of course, Anzu never read it. If she tried to breach confidentiality, the wizard's magic would wreck her stomach. Back in the bathroom, she and Saki thought about what to do for summer break. As Saki was about to suggest going to the summer festival, she noticed Anzu fast asleep. This made her recall how Anzu had always been trustworthy. In the school, the boys would gossip about Saki's hot looks. She was aware that they tended to see her as a love interest. Her friends hoped she wouldn't regret it after hearing she turned down Ogawa. He was a good soccer player and quite popular, but Saki had barely spoken with him. Even her friends were envious of her good looks. However, Saki wished she had a more ordinary appearance. But had she said that, others would have said her woes were their dreams. The soccer club's assistant would rudely brush Saki's shoulder, all because she was jealous Ogawa liked her. However, Anzu demanded she apologize for bumping into Saki, and when the assistant heard people gossiping about her jealousy, she quickly stormed off. Anzu then advised Saki to stand up for herself when others treated her unkindly. Since that day, they had become friends. Anzu took her worries seriously and walked through her problems with her. Then one day, Mori asked Saki out just to see where it would go. He was a kind, easygoing senior who ran the student committee with her, and he had a good reputation among his juniors. Mori was relentless, persistently showing his interest in her. Saki felt bad for always turning him down, but Anzu assured her there was no reason to feel bad, and promised to always be by her side, no matter what she chose. So while going out with Mori, Saki told him that she could try liking him. After they made it official, they walked to school together, went on a few dates, and he kept his promise of not holding her hand until she was ready. And she was still unsure if this was love. On their way back from school, Mori invited Saki to study for a test at his house, and offered to help her with whatever she was having trouble with. She worried about the college exams he had to study for, but he assured her that his grades were good. Saki felt it would be great to get his help. What was the harm in a study session? Or so she thought. As they got to his room, Mori rushed to put a picture down before welcoming her in. Seeing how kind he'd been to her, Saki thought she had to give him a proper answer, but her eyes would shrink in fear as he tried forcing a kiss. Saki stopped him, but Mori grabbed her hand, implying that following a guy to his house meant she was ready for this. Frightened, she grabbed a book and slammed his head, yelling that she only came to study. Then she ran out and let him know their practice dates were over. Saki knew right then she wasn't in love at all. She was scared and felt dirty inside. Back at school the next day, she met up with Anzu and decided to tell her about what happened when no one else was around. As soon as she got to class, a girl met her with rumors, saying she got violent with Mori when he tried to break up with her and forced her way into his house. There were even lies about her dating other guys as well. Saki realized this all happened because she wasn't clear with him. She regretted not making up her mind sooner. All these people ever talked about were her features. What did they even know about her? She realized this was how they really felt about her. Anzu would then call the rumors a bunch of lies. She stood up for Saki and told the rest of the class to stop gossiping. Afterwards, Anzu confronted Mori, telling him to stop spreading lies just because Saki rejected him. He lied in response and argued that Saki actually hit him, but Anzu countered that it was because he broke his promise and tried to get physical before she was ready. She then sat with Saki by the stairs as she cried. It had been a long time since Saki cried in front of people, but they were tears of relief over the fact that someone really knew her. Bursting with energy the following day, Riri proposed Anzu and the two boys attend the summer festival together. Anzu quickly passed at the idea. Plus, she couldn't eat chocolate-dipped bananas anyways. But after some discussion with the boys, they eventually all agreed to go. At the festival, Junta was falling behind because he was too kind to get past the crowd. Anzu would go to fetch him and grab his hand before realizing what she did. Encountering Ryuya and their old classmates, they assumed the two of them were on a date. But Anzu quickly explained she was just trying to pull Junta out of the crowd. When Saki and the rest joined them, Ryuya's group couldn't help but wonder if Tsukasa was mad. Ryuya quickly pulled Junta to the side, telling him to get a grip and not let Tsukasa snatch Anzu away. Junta mentioned Tsukasa wasn't interested in dating, but then Ryuya asked when he planned to ask Anzu out. Junta replied he was okay with just being around her, and then Ryuya would point out that in most romantic comics, the heroine never ends up with their childhood friend. Anzu then came to get Junta, and they continued walking around with their group. She wondered if Tsukasa's junior high friends were around, but considering he moved far away, they wouldn't have come out this far. Tsukasa started noticing girls staring at him, making him uncomfortable without his hat, but he couldn't rely on it forever. While they split up to get food, Saki ran into Makoto. He was his sister's errand boy today, and was jealous of not being able to join Saki and the rest. But his sister was not someone to mess with. Suddenly, Mori bumped into them, and upon seeing him, Saki looked traumatized. Makoto would then pull her away from the uncomfortable situation. Then, they decided to get in another line for some fish roe toppings. Elsewhere, Tsukasa was happy to see Anzu wearing the bracelet he bought for her. The two of them then enjoyed the fireworks show. As she decided to take a picture to send to Arisa, everyone else popped up in the photo, including Hijiri. And so, they all enjoyed the warm atmosphere of the festival. Unbeknownst to them, Riri was getting ready to strike. She tripped Anzu, causing her to fall into the arms of Junta and Tsukasa. Anzu freaked out when she saw her cotton candy on the floor and attacked Riri for ruining it. Riri's plans were annoying, but she hoped they would come again next year. Meanwhile, a mysterious lady found Tsukasa in the background of a picture posted on social media. The following day, Anzu got taken to an arcade by Hijiri, even though she had warned him not to ask her out on a date. Tsuchiya gave him the idea she was just playing hard to get, and didn't understand why she wasn't grateful to be on a date with him. He didn't even consider her a love interest, because in his mind, it was all the women in the world who considered him their love interest. Anzu then suggested they battle it out on the drums, and threatened to beat him with a stick. However, Hijiri wanted to play the claw machine, and Anzu recalled Riri ended up taking back the doll he got when they were there. Remembering how rude Riri was, Hijiri decided he wanted to buy all the dolls in the machine, but Anzu would drag him off to the photo booth along with Tsuchiya. After exiting the arcade, she was approached by Yukana Kishi, a mysterious woman, now claiming she'd supposedly been dating Tsukasa for a while, adding that other people were trying to keep her and Tsukasa apart, even though they loved each other. Anzu couldn't see any connection between her and Tsukasa, and got an ominous feeling that something wasn't right. Yukana then showed the picture she found on social media of Tsukasa, which allowed her to find out where he was. Tsukasa would then turn the corner and was startled seeing Yukana. He couldn't believe she was here. While she happily ran to him, Anzu thought something was wrong. Tsukasa's eyes were full of fear, so she quickly stepped in between them, stopping Yukana from getting any closer, and told her to leave for the night. As they got into the house, Anzu noticed Tsukasa was sweating like crazy. She then checked the window to make sure Yukana had left, and after explaining Yukana claimed to be his girlfriend, he immediately threw up. He revealed that woman was his stalker, and as he calmed down, Anzu wanted to get him a drink, but he held her back, asking her to stay with him. Tsukasa then decided to tell her why he had been living by himself. It all started one day when Yukana tripped in front of Tsukasa and his friends. He then rushed to help her with her bag, the beginning of things to come. He would come across her every other day at the same spot, and she always greeted him. His friends assumed she had a crush on him, but Tsukasa didn't believe them. And then one day, he got a shirt delivered to him and asked his mom if she bought it, but she didn't, and neither did his sister. On his way to school, he encountered Yukana again, complimenting that the shirt looked great on him, and shortly after, he began receiving packages daily. His mother started giving chills because someone had made accounts under her name on multiple websites. Arisa suggested calling the police, but their father refused, implying Tsukasa may be using his mom's credit card secretly. Later on, Yukana approached Tsukasa again, asking if he didn't like her gift. He questioned why she would do such a thing. Then, she apologized, but mostly for not checking the styles he liked. He asked why she would create fake accounts under his mother's name, and Yukana argued he was at a delicate age, and probably didn't want to be seen with his girlfriend. She staggered closer, clasping his hand, and asking what styles he liked. Tsukasa was completely repulsed, and scared for his life as he backed away. He then warned her to stop sending gifts, and to never greet him again. But Yukana would continue to watch him from a distance this time, and even showed up at his school one day. While studying in his room, after drinking his drink a little bit, Tsukasa's vision suddenly became blurry. He quickly staggered to his bed and passed out. Yukana then entered his room, claiming he cared too much about what others thought, and that he came to see her every day. She caressed his hair, calling him her Tsukasa, and saying they didn't need anyone else. She then posed as Tsukasa's girlfriend online and began spreading horrible rumors, such as how he talked badly about his friends and how he was only interested in older women. His father slapped him for allowing his stalker to install spy cameras and voice recorders around him, blaming Tsukasa for being such a people pleaser. Yukana would approach Tsukasa again, questioning why others were trying to tear them apart. She was crazy enough to believe they were actually in love with each other. As she rushed to grab him, Arisa would shove her to the ground and remind Yukana she had a restraining order. Arisa warned her to never come close to Tsukasa again, or she'd see herself in jail. The next time Tsukasa tried leaving, he was haunted by images of Yukana and his friends, who thought he was a horrible person, and so he couldn't muster up the courage to go to school again. He lived with the constant regret of ever touching his bag. He lived with constant fear. Arisa and his home teacher helped him through it. He left his hometown and started living by himself to avoid Yukana. Though he could now live a normal life, he still panicked when he saw others noticing him. He could only protect himself by pushing others away. Hence, he saw himself as a weak, pathetic man. Even when his father lectured him, he couldn't say anything back. Anzu told him to say if he didn't like it, as she gave him a warm hug. She let him know he didn't do anything wrong, and felt frustrated that they hadn't become friends sooner. She would have been the first one to believe him. With teary eyes, Tsukasa replied he wished they had met earlier as well. Arisa later came to the house, letting them know she had contacted the police. Tsukasa believed this was happening because he was weak and pathetic, but Anzu assured him that wasn't it, and assured him they would all help him get through this. Later, Arisa decided she would try spending a night. Meanwhile, Yukana's mom yelled at her to stop getting public attention. Just as she claimed Tsukasa was the one who tempted her daughter, Yukana burst out, "Don't talk bad about Tsukasa." Yukana had been getting bullied at her workplace, but Tsukasa was the only one who was kind to her. Yukana believed he came to see her every day, and they talked about many things, but her mother decided it was best to sue him. Still, Yukana believed they were in a loving relationship, and their age difference didn't matter. She saw Anzu as an obstacle and wanted her gone. At the convenience store, Hijiri noticed Anzu was a bit down and let her know she could talk to him. Of course, he hit her with the classic, "This isn't for your sake." But Anzu didn't need a tsundere right now. However, he had continuously messaged her yesterday and was doing what he could to show support. When she left, the manager saw she had forgotten her phone, so Hijiri decided to have Tsuchiya deliver it to her. Saki and her brother then showed up to the store, saying they got a message from Anzu to come by. Anzu would soon be approached by 2 thugs, who dragged her into a dark alley and slammed her against the wall. Before they could rough her up, Junta and Ryuya would show up to help her. Shortly after, Tsuchiya also showed up to finish the thugs. When Saki arrived, her brother recognized one of the thugs, who revealed they'd been threatened by Yukana to deal with Anzu. After they left, Anzu thanked all of them for coming to save her, but she was surprised to hear they all got a text from her since she had never sent those messages. Tsukasa felt he had to leave after hearing Anzu got attacked. She told him there was no need and that he didn't need to suffer because of a crazed stalker, promising they would overcome this together. In her room, Riri revealed that he saved Anzu by using his magic to send those messages. Anzu asked if he couldn't use his magic to create a barrier. That way Yukana wouldn't be able to find Tsukasa. But Riri explained they could only use their magic to help people fall in love. Riri considered removing Tsukasa as a love interest if Anzu fell into danger again. Anzu responded by tossing his wand into poop again, and called them a heartless jerk. In the living room, Tsukasa apologized to Junta for putting Anzu in danger, but Junta told him not to overthink it, because it wasn't his fault. Fortunately, Anzu wasn't harmed this time, but if it happened again, he felt he would need to fight back, even at the cost of his baseball career. Junta revealed that he got into baseball in the first place because Anzu once said she liked sporty guys. One day, while they were playing games, she speculated he would be good at baseball because of his sharp reflexes. Tsukasa couldn't help but laugh at the fact that Anzu had no idea she helped create a promising athlete. After another night shift, Anzu was picked up by the both of them, but they had no idea Yukana was lurking by. At the next night shift, Anzu told Hijiri that Tsukasa and Arisa had been following her back home for a while, so nothing had happened. He offered to have Tsuchiya help out if she needed it. On her way home, Anzu was suddenly approached by Yukana, asking for a minute of her time. Scared, Anzu wondered what to do. Tsukasa was coming soon, and she couldn't let Yukana see him. Yukana would then rush at her with a knife, causing blood to splatter on the ground. Anzu noticed blood dripping from her forehead. Frightened, she wanted to run, but Yukana drew closer, angry that Anzu was keeping her and Tsukasa apart. Everyone else decided to split up and look for Anzu. Tsuchiya told Hijiri to leave it to him, since he was still on his shift. Everyone else decided to split up and look for Anzu. Riri felt things were going badly, now that his magic was disabled. While running around, Tsukasa came across Anzu being held back by Yukana, but fear gripped him as his stalker started approaching. After recalling how Anzu had always helped him, he overcame his fear and attacked Yukana, making it clear he never wanted to see her or hear her name again. But the deranged stalker wouldn't stop. Believing Tsukasa was lying, she would always hold him in her heart, and claimed he got violent due to the influence of others. Despite bleeding from her head, Anzu went to defend Tsukasa, saying she would never leave his side if Yukana continued pestering him. With the police arriving to apprehend Yukana, Anzu slowly lost consciousness. She would later have her head stitched at the hospital, and luckily, the cut wasn't deep. Tsukasa's father then approached her and apologized for her injury, especially since she was involved with his son. He forced Tsukasa to bow and apologize before dragging him off, but Anzu stopped him, blaming the father for not protecting Tsukasa when he needed help. She also called him out for not trying to understand how rough it was for Tsukasa. Back at home, Tsukasa apologized for her injury and admitted that she was always saving him. The day she had mistakenly broke his phone, he had been getting texts from a lot of girls who wouldn't let him be. Seeing how she quickly ran off made him a bit relieved that day. When he came across her again in the train station, he was frightened, faintly seeing an image of Yukana. But Anzu turned out to not be like that. As they kept encountering each other, he felt he could be around her. Ever since the first time they met, she always told him things he wanted to hear, and had always been there to help when he needed it. Tsukasa then embraced her dearly. He never thought he'd cherish someone this much in his life. He thanked her, but she said it was no biggie. Junta would then walk in on them and have his heart shattered. Anzu's mom returned home, wailing about the scar on her daughter's neck, and shrieking it'd be harder for her to find a husband now. But Arisa told her not to worry, saying Anzu had already proposed to Tsukasa. Meanwhile, Yukana's uncle could no longer vouch for her. He was confronted by Hijiri, who decided to let things go this time. But if Yukana tried something again, he would use more drastic measures. Riri, who was watching, then decided to take precautions of her own to ensure their safety. In a correctional facility, Riri visited Yukana, introducing herself as a wizard. Confused, Yukana asked what the hell was with her, but Riri claimed that was her line. Yukana's eyes grew wide in fear as Riri did something terrifying. Afterwards, Riri returned to Anzu's room and changed to her male form, and also assured Anzu that he had taken care of all her worries. He confessed that he loved her a lot, and kissed her forehead, then bid her goodbye and vanished. The following day, Arisa revealed that Yukana had lost all her memories of the past few years and had no recollection of Tsukasa, so he could finally live a normal life without worries. It was all so sudden for him, but Anzu told him to take his time. Anzu's dad then returned home, surprising her with her 3 great desires: video games, chocolates, and last but not least, Momohiki. But Anzu wondered why this was happening. Junta and Tsukasa would have to share a room because Anzu's mom told them to stay over. However, Junta couldn't even pretend to like it. Tsukasa then revealed to him that he was now seeing Anzu as a love interest, and Junta was excited to hear this because Anzu was awesome. But considering Ryuya liked her as well, Junta felt he had no chance. Tsukasa said not to worry about him because Anzu only saw him as a friend, and was sure it was the same with Junta. Then, they agreed to never speak of this again. They overheard Anzu saying she'd be going downstairs, and Tsukasa decided to join her. But Junta stopped him, saying he couldn't leave the two of them alone. He started crying after remembering how he came across them hugging each other. In the living room, Anzu called out to Riri, asking her to explain herself. But Kate, another wizard, told her Riri had left, and said she was now assigned to her case. She added that Riri wasn't allowed to visit the human world again. Junta and Tsukasa walked in and saw the floating wizard because Kate had forgotten to cast the illusion spell. She then explained the whole situation to the boys, and thinking back on it, Tsukasa recalled some unnatural events. Still, they were glad that they were able to meet Anzu, even if it wasn't through normal circumstances. Kate then explained that Riri committed a taboo by using magic for personal reasons, revealing she had erased part of Yukana's memories. Riri's feelings for Anzu had crossed the line, just like when she sent messages to Anzu's friends to help with the thugs. In their world, wizards weren't allowed to use magic unless it was to help their subjects fall in love. In normal circumstances, Riri would have faced the worst punishment possible, but the company vouched for her, so Riri would have to do menial tasks in the dungeon for the rest of her life as punishment. Anzu suddenly snatched Kate's wand, threatening to flush it down the toilet if she didn't bring Riri back. Not only was she seen by humans on the first day of her assignment, but her top secret mission was revealed. On top of that, it would be terrible for her to lose her magic. Anzu's threats only grew worse, saying her dad had just taken a huge dump. Kate quickly negotiated for Riri to return for 15 minutes in exchange for her bonus, and went ahead to summon Riri. As she appeared, Anzu asked her to change into her male form. She couldn't believe he dared disappear without telling her. After he got strangled, Riri made it clear this was their once-in-a-lifetime goodbye. But Anzu always wanted him gone anyways. Still, Anzu wanted to properly thank him, and Tsukasa thanked Riri as well. But Riri felt they didn't deserve it because they broke the rules. Riri told her to forget about them, but Anzu would never choose her needs over a friend. She just couldn't forget about Riri. She asked Riri what they wanted to do from here, and Riri cried out that they wanted to stay with her. Riri hugged her and cried out their heart. But Kate cut off the sweet moment, reminding Riri that their time was up. Anzu told her to use her magic to make Riri stay in this world, but Kate argued it was impossible. She could only use her magic for things related to Anzu's love life. But Anzu knew this, and asked what would happen if there was a minuscule chance of Riri being a love interest. Using that loophole, she declared it was totally legal to make Riri stay with her. And Kate made it so, taking another cut out of her bonus. Anzu then made it clear she wasn't going to take part in Riri's mission, and Riri accepting the challenge, declaring they wouldn't lose. Anzu's parents went overseas again after that, and she continued living with Tsukasa and Junta. On their way to school, Hijiri drove up to them, hitting them with the classic narcissistic attitude. Anzu patted his head like a little brother, mentioning that she had heard he put a stop to Yukana's uncle's plans. She found it cute he wasn't trying to take credit. With her desires returned, Anzu thought she didn't have to bend backwards to prevent romance anymore. That's when Riri happily ran towards her, announcing the new rule. If by the time Anzu graduated and she didn't achieve a happy ending with someone, her things would be gone forever. But Anzu wouldn't be forced into love no matter what, and she would see to it that Riri's stupid plans failed miserably. Riri teased the others to keep their guard up, because there was a chance Anzu could pick her. They even kissed twice, after all. Anzu's romantic and lovely life was slowly but surely advancing. Alright, not a bad ending to the series. I think the most messed up part was Tsukasa's stalker. That is some scary stuff, guys. Anyways, who do you think Anzu should end up with? I'm putting my vote in for Tsukasa. Even though he's just basically Ichigo Kurosaki, but a little more aloof, I think the romantic chemistry between him and Anzu is just a little bit better than the others. I would rank 2nd Junta, 3rd Hijiri, 4th Ryuya. I think he's probably the least compatible. Subscribe for more content, and remember to hype the video, baby, or I'm going broke. Watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.